So you want to own an airport. You want to buy thousands of acres of land, lay down miles of thick concrete, build a shimmering glass terminal, and watch the cash roll in every time a multi-million-dollar commercial jetliner touches down on your property. You envision yourself sitting at the absolute center of global commerce, holding the keys to the ultimate captive audience. Hundreds of thousands of people are funneled through your building every single day, with nowhere else to go and hours to kill. It looks like the most perfect, impenetrable monopoly on Earth. It is not. The modern commercial airport is a schizophrenic business model masquerading as public infrastructure. It is a highly volatile world where the primary thing you were built to do, which is landing airplanes, barely breaks even, and where your actual profit relies entirely on selling exhausted travelers overpriced bottles of water and charging them astronomical daily fees to leave their cars on a piece of painted asphalt. You will understand exactly why the business of aviation infrastructure defies standard economic logic. You will learn the brutal structural difference between aeronautical and non-aeronautical revenue. You will understand why airlines hold almost all the leverage, even though you are the one who owns the concrete. And you will realize why massive private equity and global infrastructure funds are buying up airports all over the world just to turn them into highly secure, inescapable shopping malls. Let us start with the sheer scale of the infrastructure penalty you face before a single plane lands. You cannot just pave a long road and call it a runway. The capital expenditure required to build and maintain a commercial airport is mind-bending. You need thousands of contiguous, perfectly flat acres of land, usually located as close as possible to a major metropolitan area where real estate prices are incredibly high. You are laying down primary runways that are 2 to 3 miles long and several feet thick, engineered with specialized friction courses and grooved concrete designed to absorb the massive, violent kinetic impact of a 400,000-pound Boeing 777 slamming onto the surface at 160 miles per hour. That single runway can cost hundreds of millions of dollars to build, and it requires constant, relentless, and expensive maintenance. Every time a heavy jet lands, the friction from the tires leaves behind a thick layer of burned rubber. If that rubber builds up, the runway loses its friction coefficient, and airplanes will literally slide off the end of the tarmac in heavy rain. Because of this, you have to routinely shut down your primary money-making asset in the middle of the night and deploy massive, custom-built high-pressure water blasters to strip the rubber off the grooved concrete. And you are also fighting a massive environmental war. When it snows or freezes, airlines have to spray thousands of gallons of heated glycol de-icing fluid over the wings of their aircraft so they can fly safely. That highly toxic chemical drips off the planes, hits your concrete, and mixes with the storm runoff. To prevent this chemical runoff from poisoning the local municipal water table, you are legally forced to build massive subterranean drainage networks and dedicated industrial water treatment facilities right on the edge of the airfield. You are running a heavy-duty chemical containment site disguised as a transportation hub. But the runway and the environmental containment are just the outdoor expenses. You have to build the terminal, which is essentially a small, climate-controlled city. You have to buy and install complex, multi-million-dollar automated baggage handling systems. These systems are so mathematically complex, relying on miles of high-speed conveyor belts, barcode scanners, and automated routing carts, that they are notorious for catastrophic failure. When Denver International Airport was built, their state-of-the-art automated baggage system shredded bags, jammed constantly, and single-handedly delayed the opening of the entire multi-billion-dollar airport by 16 months, costing the city $1 million a day in interest payments alone, while the building sat completely empty. Add to that the cost of building the air traffic control tower, the reinforced taxiways, the massive underground jet fuel storage farms fed by dedicated pipelines, and the on-site fire rescue stations equipped with specialized million-dollar foam-spraying heavy trucks. Because an airport is categorized as critical national security infrastructure, you are also forced to spend a fortune on high-tech perimeter fencing, biometric access controls, explosive detection systems, and heavily armed, highly paid police forces. All of this capital expenditure, which easily runs into the tens of billions of dollars for a major international hub, is spent to provide a service that makes up the first and least profitable half of your revenue model: aeronautical revenue. Aeronautical revenue is the money you make directly from the aviation operations. Every time a plane lands on your runway, the airline pays you a landing fee. This fee is usually calculated by the maximum takeoff weight of the specific aircraft. A heavy international wide-body jet pays significantly more to land than a small regional jet. When the plane parks at the gate, the airline pays you a parking fee. They pay you to rent the physical ticket counters. They lease the gate hold rooms. They pay a per-passenger facility charge, and they pay for the right to use the baggage carousels. On paper, this sounds like a steady, guaranteed, high-volume income stream. Planes have to land, so airlines have to pay. But here is the brutal reality of aeronautical revenue. You have almost absolutely no pricing power. You might think that because you own the only major runway in a 300-mile radius, you can charge the airlines whatever you want to cover your massive debt payments. But the airlines hold the ultimate trump card in the negotiation: total geographic mobility. An airplane is an incredibly expensive, revenue-generating asset that can be moved anywhere in the world at a moment's notice. Your concrete runway cannot move an inch. If you try to drastically raise landing fees or terminal rents, the major airlines will simply threaten to move their connecting hub to a different, cheaper city. This is the great hostage situation of the airport business. An airport is almost entirely dependent on its anchor hub airlines to survive. If an airport loses its primary airline, the financial results are instantly catastrophic. Just look at what happened to St. Louis when TWA collapsed, or Pittsburgh when US Airways decided to move its hub, or Cincinnati when Delta heavily downsized its operations. Those airports were left holding massive, billion-dollar municipal bond debts for sprawling concourses that they had custom-built specifically for those airlines. And almost overnight, those concourses turned into silent ghost towns. Because of this terrifying leverage, airlines aggressively negotiate long-term use and lease agreements that strictly cap what the airport is legally allowed to charge them. The situation is even worse when you have to deal with the ultra-low-cost carriers. Airlines like Ryanair in Europe or Southwest and Spirit in the United States operate on ruthless, razor-thin margins. They will walk into an airport management office and demand practically free landing fees, massive marketing subsidies, and slashed terminal rents, arguing that the massive volume of passengers they will dump into the terminal will make the airport rich in other ways. And 9 times out of 10, the airport completely caves to the airline's demands, because the airport operators know a fundamental secret about their own industry. The real money is not in the airplanes anyway. This brings us to the second half of the business model, the absolute lifeblood and savior of the modern airport infrastructure trap: non-aeronautical revenue. This is the money you make from the passengers themselves once they step out of their cars and walk into your building. In the global commercial airport industry, non-aeronautical revenue generally accounts for roughly 40% of total income, but it provides almost all of the actual profit margin that keeps the facility solvent. You are no longer running an infrastructure company. You are running a highly aggressive commercial real estate empire that manipulates human psychology through a phenomenon known as the golden hour. Here is the underlying psychology of the airport terminal layout. Because the Transportation Security Administration lines are completely unpredictable, and because the anxiety of missing a commercial flight is so incredibly high, passengers are culturally conditioned to arrive at the airport 2 or even 3 hours before their flight departs. They rush through the sliding glass doors. They endure the intense, dehumanizing stress of taking off their shoes, unpacking their laptops, and walking through millimeter-wave body scanners under the glaring eyes of federal agents. And then they grab their bags and walk into the sterile area of the terminal. The exact moment they clear security, their blood pressure drops. The hardest part is over. They look at the massive digital departure board. They see that their flight is not boarding for another 90 minutes, and they enter a psychological state called the golden hour. They are a completely captive audience, They cannot legally leave the building without going through security all over again. They were forced to throw away all their own beverages at the checkpoint, and they have absolutely nothing to do but wait. This is where you, the airport owner, extract the margin. You lease out every single square inch of available terminal space to retail concessions, fast food restaurants, high-end bars, and electronics kiosks. You generally do not run these businesses yourself. Instead, you sign master concession agreements with massive multinational hospitality companies like HMS Host or SSP Group. Those companies pay you a minimum annual guarantee just for the right to operate, plus a percentage of their gross sales, which can often be as high as 15 to 20%. Because the retailers have to pay you such an exorbitant percentage of their daily sales, and because their own logistical costs to deliver inventory through security are so high, they pass that cost directly onto the captive passenger. This is the entire economic reason why a simple turkey sandwich and a bottle of water costs $18, why a standard beer at an airport bar costs $12, and why a travel pillow costs $40. The passengers complain endlessly about the extortionate prices, but they pull out their credit cards and buy it anyway because they are stressed, they are tired, and they literally have no other physical choice. You have monetized their boredom and their confinement. In international terminals, this retail strategy becomes even more aggressive and lucrative through duty-free shopping. Massive duty-free operators like Dufry or Heinemann bid tens of millions of dollars for the exclusive monopolistic right to sell tax-free alcohol, tobacco, cosmetics, and luxury fashion inside your international terminal. You actually work with your architects to design the physical floor plan of the airport specifically to force every single international passenger to walk down a winding, serpentine path directly through the middle of the duty-free store before they are even allowed to reach their gate. It is a psychological layout pioneered by companies like IKEA, deployed in high-security transit zones. In regions like the Middle East and the Asia Pacific, these retail concessions can make up close to 50% of an airport's entire non-aeronautical revenue. You are selling Prada handbags, Rolex watches, and massive bottles of Johnny Walker Blue Label to people who are just trying to kill time before a connecting flight to Singapore. To further optimize this, airports will strategically place large flight information display screens directly above or immediately next to the highest margin bars and restaurants, encouraging passengers to sit down, order a cocktail, and spend money while they continuously stare at the screen, waiting for their gate assignment to appear. But the real estate strategy is evolving even further into a massive urban planning concept known as the Aerotropolis. Modern airports are realizing that they own massive tracts of undeveloped, highly connected land just outside the security perimeter. So they become full-scale commercial real estate developers. They build massive luxury hotels physically attached to the terminals, so business travelers never even have to leave the property. They build convention centers, corporate office parks, and massive logistical warehousing hubs for cargo companies right on the edge of the tarmac. They transform the airport from a mere transit point that you pass through into a final economic destination in itself, capturing corporate revenue that has absolutely nothing to do with buying an airline ticket. But despite the luxury handbags, the $12 beers, and the Aerotropolis mega projects, the absolute highest margin, most reliable, and most fundamentally profitable center of the entire airport business model is incredibly simple, entirely unglamorous, and hiding right in plain sight. It is the parking lot. In North America, car parking accounts for an astonishing 43% of all non-aeronautical revenue. Let that sink in for a moment. You spent $3 billion building a state-of-the-art grooved concrete runway to safely land wide-body jetliners. You spend millions maintaining a high-tech automated baggage system. And your single most profitable asset is the flat strip of painted asphalt sitting right in front of the terminal building. The economics of airport parking are staggering. A surface parking lot or even a multi-level concrete parking garage costs practically nothing to build and maintain compared to a runway or a specialized air traffic control tower. Yet, you can charge travelers $20, $30, or even $50 a day to leave their car there while they go on a week-long vacation. You implement advanced dynamic pricing algorithms, exactly like the airlines use for selling seats, so that if the parking garage gets full during the Thanksgiving or Christmas holiday rush, the daily rate automatically surges to capture the peak demand. You introduce premium tiers, dedicated valet parking, and priority spaces right next to the terminal elevator for exorbitant daily fees. The gross profit margin on a parking space is astronomically high, and the only operational overhead is a few automated ticketing machines, some security cameras, and a couple of shuttle buses. The massive commercial airlines will fight you in court to shave pennies off their landing fees on the tarmac, but out in the parking lot, you hold absolute monopolistic pricing power over the local population. How an airport legally handles all of this massive commercial profit depends entirely on the regulatory and accounting framework it is forced to operate under, a concept that the global aviation industry calls the till. There are two primary systems that dictate the financial fate of the airport: the single till and the dual till. Under a single till system, which is very common in highly regulated, government-owned public airports, the regulatory authority forces the airport to take all of the massive profits generated from the parking lots, the duty-free shops, and the terminal restaurants, and use them to subsidize and lower the aeronautical landing fees for the airlines. The airlines absolutely love the single till system because the captive passengers buying expensive sandwiches are effectively paying for the airline's operational costs to use the runway. The single till system artificially caps the airport's ability to generate independent wealth. But under a dual till system, the airport's aeronautical business and its commercial business are treated as two completely separate accounting silos. The airport sets the landing fees strictly based on the actual cost of operating the runways and the airside infrastructure, and it gets to keep all of the retail, real estate, and parking profits entirely for itself to reinvest, expand, or pay out as massive dividends to its shareholders. This dual till system and the sheer volume of cash it can generate is the exact reason why massive private equity firms and global infrastructure funds are rushing to buy and privatize airports all over the world. Over the past few decades, governments in Europe, Latin America, and Asia have realized they simply cannot afford the billions of dollars of capital required to modernize their aging airport infrastructure. So, they sell long-term leases, usually 50 or 99-year operational concessions, to private equity consortiums. These infrastructure funds, which currently hold hundreds of billions of dollars in dry powder ready to deploy, swoop in, buy the operational rights to the airport, and immediately start acting like ruthless commercial retail landlords. They do not care about the romance of aviation or the history of flight. They care entirely about increasing passenger throughput, reducing wait times at security to get people into the golden hour faster, and expanding the commercial square footage. They optimize the terminal layout to maximize retail exposure. They introduce higher-end brands. They aggressively expand the parking facilities. Academic research consistently shows that when private equity funds take over an airport, the number of airline routes increases, flight cancellations drop, and overall passenger volume surges. This is not because the private equity managers are benevolent transportation advocates providing a public service. It is because more passengers mean more people trapped in the golden hour, buying more overpriced bottles of water and paying for more days of premium parking. They understand that volume is the only metric that matters in a high fixed cost retail monopoly. In the United States, however, this global privatization wave has almost completely failed to launch because American airports are overwhelmingly owned by city, county, or state governments, and because their continuous expansion is funded almost entirely by tax-exempt municipal bonds. The legal and financial hurdles to selling an American airport to a private equity fund are massively complicated. If a city wants to lease its airport to a private company in a public-private partnership, federal law generally dictates that it has to pay off all the outstanding tax-exempt bond debt first. That requirement completely wipes out the financial windfall of the sale for the local government. So, American airports remain publicly owned Massive, slowly updating bureaucratic entities, constantly fighting with airlines over fees, while European and Asian airports transform into hyper-efficient, hyper-commercialized luxury mega malls managed by high-powered financial executives. This is the reality sitting underneath the roaring jet engines and the glowing departure boards. You are buying into a business that requires the upfront capital of a small nation-state, operates under the crushing, non-negotiable safety regulations of the federal government, and is entirely dependent on the strategic whims of massive, mobile airlines that view you as an expensive inconvenience. The aeronautical side of the business is a constant grinding battle of leverage where you rarely have the upper hand. You provide the absolute critical infrastructure for the global economy, but the margins on that infrastructure are agonizingly thin. The true economy of owning an airport is entirely terrestrial. The thick concrete runways keep the planes coming. The security checkpoints keep the anxiety high, but the bottle of duty-free perfume, the $18 sandwich, and the $30 a day parking space keep the lights on and pay the billions of dollars in bond debt. You are not really running a transportation company. You are running the most perfectly optimized, highly secure, inescapable shopping mall on Earth, which just happens to have a very long, very expensive driveway for airplanes attached to the back. If you found this video valuable, leave a like, subscribe, and comment below which business you want me to cover next.